Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News for You. In the news this week, there's a nasty surprise for two Man United fans as they ask for Bobby Charlton's autograph. In Moscow, the Grim Reaper fails yet again to catch the attention of Boris Yeltsin. And at the Sky TV studios, the Duchess of York's chat show is suddenly taken off the air. On Ian Hislop's team is a TV gardening expert who we're told regularly stages full-sized operatic productions in his own garden. That's the only way to keep the crows off his strawberries. Alan Titchmarsh. And with Paul Merton tonight, former director of the Millennium Dome, whose new book about the inner workings of Blair's government came out recently, along with half the cabinet, Stephen Bailey. As usual, our opening fanfare and 21 gun salute is replaced by a few bits of film footage from ITN. Ian and Alan.
That's the editor of The Sun, or an alien.
Both.
That's Nick Brown, he's gay. That's Ron Davis, he's a druid. That's Chris Smith, he's gay. And that's Peter Mandelson. Well, it's people coming out. Nick Brown came out shortly before he was outed by the News of the World. And so Murdoch has a rather peculiar attitude at the moment. The Sun has gone all liberal and says, come off it, no one cares, private life's your own. And the News of the World, also owned by Murdoch, says, Darla Pufta, who do you know? Let us out. I think the Sun have been told that they've got to be nice to gays from now on because they're Labour and they're in power.
And their readers had a vote, and their readers voted 3-2 in favour of not caring a hoot anyway.
You get the feeling that their readers include a Mr. R. Murdoch, whose bid to buy this football team is coming up in front of the Department of Trade and Industry, run by P. Mandelson.
Yeah, so as a result...
I'm homosexual. And I've been for about 20 minutes.
Well, I think that's your own business.
That's it. Then I'll put your back out.
So, Stephen, your book that is out...
Thank you for mentioning it. It's called Labour Camp.
Yes. It has a bright pink cover, I noticed.
Yes, I've got a pale pink shirt. And I was just wondering, did you notice that the editor of The Sun was wearing exactly the same colour shirt as Ian's wearing today? Tangerine is how I describe it. We designed that it was a very sensitive to colour issue.
Mm-hmm. But are you suggesting I'm a journalist?
Well, it may be something to do with hair loss. I was wondering whether the things might be related.
Girls. But is this not simply, your book, is it not sort of revenge for the spat you had with...
yes, of course it is. Revenge is great. Revenge is great fun, would you find?
Because you do refer to Peter Mandelson in some quite unkind ways.
Oh, yes.
Not a ladies' man in the old-fashioned sense.
Yes. This joke I heard about him, I didn't get in the book, and it was this. Why do people take an immediate dislike to Peter Mandelson? And the answer is to save time.
This is the media frenzy surrounding the outing of cabinet ministers. In Monday's Sun, they came up with a brilliant wheeze. Are you a gay MP who'd like to come out? The Sun has set up a hotline on 0171 782 4105 for ministers and MPs who are secretly homosexual, adding, don't worry about the cost, we'll ring you back.
It was engaged all morning.
Paul and Stephen.
Yes, that's Prince Charles there. That's the investiture of the Prince of Wales in... this is the bus conductors parade.
And this is Highgrove, isn't it? This is where the Prince of Wales has developed his organic techniques, and this is the person who developed them with. It's Prince Charles's 50th birthday party this week, and Peter Mandelson, we gather from the newspapers, is going to be one of the guests.
Friend of Prince Charles.
Well, yeah, well, exactly.
I thought it was about the fact that he'd supposedly, allegedly, the word he used, asked the Queen to abdicate.
Do you know how they refer to the word abdicate in Buckingham Palace?
Naff off.
No, the A word is how they refer to it.
A word?
The A word.
That's related to that other thing, isn't it? Why lesbianism, since we're talking about homosexuality, was never on the statute books in the last century because no one could bear to describe what it meant to Queen Victoria.
We're suggesting Queen Victoria was not as other women.
No, there's nothing wrong with her. She married that bloke, Albert Memorial. She
went out.
It's called Albert Hall.
No, she went out with that man in the skirt. There was two of them. John Brown. I'll tell you something about the Albert Memorial. It's not.
Do?
Yeah, it's not widely known.
He's going to anyway.
When Prince Albert died, tragically young, through overwork and dysentery and typhoid.
You know, it's better than evening classes, isn't it?
This one gets spent funny. Her various... That's a proud boast. The various advisors said to Your Majesty, what would you like as a memorial to your dead husband? She said, in my imagination, only a monolith 500 feet tall can represent his stature.
You promised some funny things.
So what are Charles's credentials as a gardener then, Alan?
He's very organic.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, sort of, you know, he uses blood, fish and bone instead of sulphate of ammonia.
I shouldn't have asked.
Well, he's not the only one who can be boring.
Blood, fish and bone. Then blood split up and met two guys called Sweat and Tears. What do we have to Fish and Bone?
They changed their name, became Fishbone Ash.
We seem to be wandering around an alien landscape where comedy's a stranger.
I meant more actually him talking to plants, whether that...
Well, he came out with this thing and he said, I find it's very good if I talk to my plants.
Have you ever been to Bombay? Have you been to Bombay?
It was an effort at comedy. It didn't work. That's right.
This is, of course, Prince Charles's 50th birthday celebrations and the accompanying TV shows. Reactions to the LWT documentary were mixed. The Mirror reporting that when Camilla Parker Bowles heard about some of the allegations in the programme, she had a face like thunder. So, not moved at all then. Ian and Alan?
Oh, I recognise that.
What is it? Oh, cannabis.
It's not rhubarb. This is the prospect that cannabis might be available on the NHS.
The House of Lords said that it would be a terrific idea if cannabis was available on medical grounds, which is what most people claim, particularly when caught. The Lords recommended that this be allowed to be used because of anecdotal evidence, because everyone said this is really good, and the government said no, we've got to test it first. So 8 months later, they'll all go very mellow and say, yeah, take it. Fine.
So there is another way of taking it apart from smoking it, of course.
In cakes.
Obviously been to
You bake
Amsterdam.
it on your birthday, don't you? I gather.
Is Delia doing it next week?
Yep.
And which royal is famous for taking cannabis?
Queen Victoria, for period pains. You?
Not just cannabis either, cocaine,
First you
opium.
tell me she's a lesbian, now she's
This is according to a Balmoral chemist, or its records, which they found recently. Apparently Queen Victoria took cocaine, opium and heroin. No wonder they couldn't get her off the throne. So any tips on growing cannabis?
And you've got to keep it warm, apparently.
Right.
I've never tried, honestly. I've never grown.
And is it technically a weed, or is it just called?
Well, a weed's only any plant growing out of place, so in your garden, probably not.
And finally, Paul and Stephen.
There's William Hague greeting his supporter. IKEA furniture at the last, and this is, yes, they want to change the whole image. They want to get rid of the torch, because nobody knows what it means. They might even change their name from the Conservative Party to something a bit more relevant, like the Losers.
Have you noticed how much of a role furniture plays in contemporary politics? You know, we had Irving's, Lord Irving's, Huguenot bedchamber. We've had all the hullabaloo about, Blair and Chirac sitting on parents' comment furniture. Now we've got IKEA stuff here.
IKEA?
Yeah. Well, the Conservatives are sitting on...
Why is it everyone else calls it IKEA?
I don't suppose you care one way or the other.
But I think the futility...
I'm going to the IKEA at Brent Cross.
Brent Cross, I think.
Brent Crow, yes.
Yeah.
We go through well, there isn't one in Knightsbridge.
And so who are some of the people involved in this rebranding exercise?
Archie Norman.
Yes, who we saw in the picture. And there's Kerry Evans from Channel 4, or formerly Channel 4. He's the person who's in charge of Haig's new image, which is apparently pale blue shirts and gold silk ties. Yourself.
One for the bin.
Yeah. Of course, the last Tory party conference featured a memorable performance by Peter Lilly, which we can now see, sadly.
Land of chattering glasses, no more pageantry. Darlings, raise more glasses to brave modernity.
He did it before he sang I've Got a Little List, an old Gilbert and Sullivan song.
Oh, yes,
Even
yes.
worse than that. I think he's paid by the Labour Party.
It's certainly not by the musicians' union.
I think I'm always fascinated by extremes, which is why I'm fascinated by all of you, of course. And I think that anybody who's effortless
It's not neutral.
transcends parody.
No, please.
No,
don't bother then. That's all right.
No, I simply think that as a broad cultural observation, it's impossible to parody something as awful as that, and I think you are therefore in touch with a form of excellence which is worth acknowledging. There is creative power there which is presently untapped.
That's a load of bollocks. Or would that be Bolo?
It is the attempt by a new creative forum of the Conservative designers to rebrand the Tory image. According to a party spokesman, they're determined to rebrand everything down to their logo. We want to construct a corporate look which reflects our current image and where we're at now. So the ideal designer would be adept at drawing shit creeks but not able to draw a paddle. So at the end of that round, both teams have one more than we're allowed to say there are gays in the cabinet, scoring as they have 4 each. As we enter round 2, we welcome the 50% of viewers who are watching this on video but still haven't mastered the timer. Odd one out where we're at. Paul, your 4 gorgeous creatures are Jerry Halliwell,
Yep.
Emma Thompson, Billy, and Peter Young.
Well, Jerry Halliwell, Emma Thompson and Billy, they've all been recently named as, within the last few days, as suitable role models for teenage girls. And Peter Young hasn't. So I think I would say that, unless it's got something else to do with something else, that Peter Young's the odd one out because he's not considered a suitable role model for teenage girls.
Is the right answer.
Thank you very much.
Frankly, the most interesting thing about Peter Young is not that he got dressed up in women's clothes to go for a fraud trial, which seems to be a sort of self-denying. But his wife revealed he'd recently been out and bought 30 jars of gherkins.
And what does he prefer to be known as?
IKEA. He's gone Swedish.
Liz.
And looking at Jerry Halliwell, I think her role model when she was young was Led Zeppelin.
Or 2 blindfolded, bald-headed blokes.
Yes, Health Minister Tessa Jowell launched the initiative last Monday, and for an extra point, what happened next?
their role models were. Their role...
Did Jerry breathe out near the cocktail cabinet? Just trying to stretch. The cameraman spontaneously combusted.
Closer.
Well, we don't really know, do we, Angus?
Okay, all right. We'll have a look at it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a TV spotlight which exploded, setting off a fire alarm which activated the sprinkler. Although the day wasn't totally ruined for Baroness J, as she later came third in a wet T-shirt competition. Stephen. John Burt, Director General. Christopher Bland, BBC Chairman. Joseph Goebbels, and Peter Mandelson.
There's something really quite wicked in the history of public broadcasting has happened in recent days, and this sort of positively Stalinist, Nazi, whatever you want to know, memorandum forbidding us to mention Peter Mandelson's name. I was appalled to find the BBC had a political officer. There's somebody reporting and directing and sending memos about who you can talk about, who you can't. But anyway, the odd one out is certainly Joseph Goebbels, because he's the only one who doesn't eat risotto.
And he's the only one who's absolutely certain in his mind which direction Poland lies in.
All three of the other ones, apart from Joseph Goebbels, worked at one time for London Weekend Television, and they were all mates together, which is why Peter Mandelson, a friend of John Burt, and Christopher Bland and Burt don't like any reference to Mandelson, because they're all mates together from LWT.
And
Goebbels worked on the first series of Rosie and Jim, so you can't...
whose daughter now works for the Millennium Dome?
And there was the other show, Heil Bagpuss. You must remember that.
John Burt's daughter works for the Millennium Dome, whose boss was Mandelson. But I don't think we can read anything into that, apart from the fact that it's a bit whippy.
And who?
This is all their private life, as we've said often enough. I don't think this is any of our business.
There was also someone else.
There was also that show, Mary Mungo and Hess. Do you remember that one? Mary Mungo and Hess. That was a good one, that.
There's also another person who was working at LWT around the same time.
Himmler.
In fact, Matthew,
Who else? David Frost.
Paris.
Matthew Paris.
He's been sacked by the Sun. The columnist.
Yeah, why is that?
Because they disagreed with him. How do I get round the bend?
Yeah, tricky one.
He disagreed. They disagreed with him. Well, he Peter Mandelson, but I can't say that, can I?
You can. It's just that would have just been bleeped out.
The idea that the Sun sacks a columnist because he's not sympathetic enough to homosexuals. The Sun. Now they've all gone all sort of carey-sherry, solely because their boss is sucking up to the friend of...
Yes, interesting choice of phrase, but there we are. Ian, all your good people are Michael Jackson, Rupert Murdoch, Paula Jones, and Anne Widdecombe.
Alan, tell me about their gardens.
Well, Michael Jackson's is very large, and he has a front one and a back one.
Keep it clean, Alan. Oh, they're all Americans.
Do you
They
want
are
to...
all Americans except Anne Widdecombe. Jackson, Murdoch is an Australo-American. Paula Jones is an American.
Do you want a clue?
Yeah, I know what the answer is.
Oh, right.
Anne Widdecombe's the only one trying to rip off Rupert Murdoch's napkin.
It's more of a losing face question.
Have they all had lifts, face lifts? I mean, Michael Jackson's had...
He settled with the Mirror this week, didn't he? Because they said his face was falling to bits in 1992.
Rupert Murdoch's the only one who hasn't had a facelift.
No,
Sorry, Anne Widdecombe, if it was you.
he couldn't have had a facelift, surely. You'd ask for your money back, wouldn't you?
Yes, the answer is that all of them have had facial plastic surgery, with the exception of Anne Widdecombe, who has spoken out against it and the 90s obsession with looks. It irritates me considerably that half the commentary on me is about what I'm wearing, said Anne, sporting a fetching two-piece in tufted accents. And finally in this round, Alan. Douglas Hurd, Alistair Campbell, Richard E. Grant, and yourself.
I'm the odd one out because it's a good photograph of all the other three apart from me.
That's a good photo of Douglas Hurd.
He's doing grommet there, isn't he? Was it Wallace I'm thinking of? What I'm thinking of?
Nottingham
cheese grommet.
I think what it might be, I think the odd one out is probably Alistair Campbell, because Douglas Hurd, Richard E. Grant, and myself have all three just written novels. Mine is called Mr. McGregor, and I don't know what the other two are called.
It's books, but it's dirty books, isn't it? There's a prize, there's an annual prize called the Literary Review Prize for Bad Sex, and it's for very, very embarrassing sex scenes written in novels. I think you're all shortlisted for this prize, except for Alistair Campbell, who actually used to write for Forum before he joined Tony's spanking clean outfit. Sorry, that's an unfortunate phrase. He wrote sort of dirty letters and stories for Forum. Was it Forum?
It was, yes. In one story describing a sexual encounter with a French woman, he wrote, "She held my testicles firmly from behind." So that's where he learned how to deal with journalists.
Do we get any points?
Yes, you do, actually, although I was going to offer Paul another one. If you could actually identify which of these three passages from Alan's book has been nominated for the Bad Sex Award. So, is it extract A, "Come on, baby," she murmured, gradually working her way down. Her smile faded as her lips reached the objective of her anatomical quest.
Or would that be a ring donut?
Or B, "Every few seconds their heads would turn in the direction of that which hung pathetically down between Guy's legs. For the first time in his life, Guy Darcy had been unable to get it up." Or is it extract C, "Beads of sweat began to appear on Guy's forehead as he became more entangled in the lissom limbs of this human boa constrictor. For fully 15 minutes their mutual passion heightened with groan sighs and liquid noises." Well, I shall take that as applause of approval. Thank you.
You'd be wrong. I'd say it's letter B.
Is the wrong answer, sadly, as it is in fact the liquid noises extract, actually, all of which stuff and nonsense marks the end of this offending part with, well, neither side seeming to have the gall to strike out, both apparently satisfied with just 8. As we enter round 3, we say goodbye to the other 50% of video viewers who wrongly thought that they could set the timer. Missing words is the name of the game, so stand by for Christmas is what?
Inevitable.
Postponed.
This is about rebranding again, isn't it? Christmas is now Winterval in Birmingham.
Winterval.
Yeah. So that's a neologism. That means it's a new word.
I know that, Stephen. I have an English degree.
I've got a degree in Burns, the poet. You know the poet?
Yes. It is in fact...
I fancy that degree in Burns, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Third degree.
first degree burns.
That's kind of what I was getting to, but...
The answer
is coming.
no, I think you were...
It is.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not coming, I'm just saying it's not...
I've heard the goose is getting fat, have you?
You're kidding.
The answer is in fact cancelled, so you were
Yeah,
virtually
cancelled,
right. And it is indeed a reference to Birmingham City Council. The name Christmas is apparently to be replaced by a more PC name, Winterval,
Which is a neologism. So Stephen tells us.
Is that a new name?
Yep.
Right. Next, Royal Corgis, 8 what?
8 my jigsaw.
Is the right answer. Very good.
Very good.
This is one of 12 jigsaws that the Queen regularly borrows from a library for Christmas. Because they are a bit expensive to buy, aren't they? Next, Mandelson is what?
Going back in?
Mandelson is not to be mentioned on any BBC programmes.
Well, that is
Everyone will have to watch ITV, Channel 4, or read the newspapers rather than refer to the BBC, obviously, a news gathering and broadcasting service. supposed to be impartial. That all fits in there.
Yeah. Excellent guesses. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to give you the answer. Next, Happy New what?
Happy New Labour.
No, I'll give you a clue. It's about pubs staying open.
Beer. Happy New Beer. You can drink beer around the millennium. Get pissed for the year 2000.
It's true. Pubs are staying open for 36 hours over the millennium, so some people...
There'll be a rush right at the end.
And finally, who's afraid of what?
John Burt. No.
No.
Who's afraid of silence?
We're not going to get there, are we? Who's afraid of the big bad Wolves mascot? Is the answer. Namely Wolfie, who got into an altercation with one of Bristol City's 3 little piggies. If you don't want to know the result, look away now.
What is the pig saying? Going to blow my house down, are you? Come on, come on.
Which blissful ignorance means the end for tonight's match made in heaven, and the wonder of it all is that this week's Rotten Apples are Ian and Alan with 10, while this week's perfect pair are Paul and Stephen with 14. So some liquid refreshment to our winners, some liquid noises to our losers. But before we give them leave to leave, we're left with the prospect of our capturing competition.
I think the bloke in the middle saying, what happened to my bowling ball? And my urine sample.
And I leave you with news that there are fears that London Zoo may have been too extravagant with their design for the new birdhouse. At the Ambrosia factory, the chief product tester orders the immediate recall of the new formula raspberry blancmange. And scandal rocks the Tate Gallery as a fake is discovered in the Warhol room. Good night.